YouTube channel, Bill's YouTube channel. This is a video tutorial 101 of these nuts.
Hi, I'm Billy Dietrich, sprint car mechanic and driver. I've been around racing my whole life and it's pretty much all I know. We created this channel to share the good and the bad and everything in between. Our crew may not be the most experienced or professional, but we get it done and we have a good time doing it. We'll show you what it's really like racing weekly at some of the best tracks in central Pennsylvania. I'm also going to share some sprint car tutorials, mechanics, parts, and whatever else I feel like. So like, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. And enjoy the ride. Yeah, boy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about axle nuts and wheel spacers and the proper way to install the spacers, get the proper spacing, and the proper way to maintenance your axle nuts with the right lubrication and the way we handle it here. So we're going to get right into it. All right, so we're going to start with the wheel spacers behind the wheel and some of the more popular things that we run across here in the shop when we get rear ends in, or customers walk in the door and have issues with their wheel centers and whatnot wearing out. Typically it's due to the spacing, and it all starts right here at the birdcage. So if you zoom in here, right past the birdcage bearing itself, there is a shoulder on the axle. Every axle is the same way, and that shoulder will actually bottom out on these splines. So what I have here, with the exception of this blue spacer, is a winner's wheel spacer kit. It's a 10-piece kit. We'll show you at the end of the video what the whole kit looks like when we sell it. We sell it here at our shop, Racers New and Used Parts Warehouse. Anyway, it comes with 10 spacers, and these straight spacers, some of them have splines inside of them, just like this. And on one side, there's no splines. It's milled out there. The purpose of that is to slide over the shoulder on the axle here. If you listen, boom, it goes right against the birdcage. That's the proper way. What happens often is somebody doesn't really know that spacer's made that way, or the shoulder's sticking out past the birdcage bearing. They'll run that on there just like that. You can hear it doesn't get tight against the birdcage. It actually gets tight on the axle because these splines are bombing out on that shoulder. So when you're doing your maintenance like we do every week, we do our maintenance, we pull all the spacers off, clean them all up in the parts washer, hand them to the guys, put them back on. We do either one of two things. We have a dedicated spacer that goes on the inside, on both sides. The left and right side's the same. Whether it be the left rear or the right rear, that's the same setup on both sides. So we have a dedicated spacer. It's blue. Sometimes we have a red one. We just paint it red. Anyway, that goes over the shoulder. It never comes off. When we're on race night at the track, this spacer, boom, has to be on there. Or if you don't have a spacer like that, you can use one of these spacers like we just talked about on there. Tell your guys leave it on. You're never going to need to pull it off anyway. So, like I said, race night, boom, spacers on there. Rest of your straight spacers, there you go. That's the proper way to install your spacers. All right, so we talked about the straight spacers that go behind the wheel. And then on the outside, we have these tapered spacers. You can see here they're tapered to meet the shape of the wheel center and the axle nut. We'll get into that here in a minute too. So what makes this important is these have to go on the outside of the wheel. They can't go behind. Now, here again, we've seen it multiple times. The guys grab a spacer off the jack, moving wheels around, throws a spacer on there, throws another spacer on there. It looks right. Well, it ain't right because it's tapered. When guys have this on here like this, it's, you know, what's going to happen is the wheel's probably going to come loose. So like I said, it looks right, but it ain't right. Straight spacers always have to go on the back side of the wheel. Cone spacers on the outside. If you got double cone like this, it has to go on the outside. Now let's talk about actual spacing while the wheel's on there, and for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to use a wheel center so we can show it up close here. All right, so I got a wheel spacer here. I'm just going to simulate how it would be with the wheel on the car. Obviously, we got the wheel on, and we have splines showing, so this is going to indicate that we need some cone spacers. Now, in this case, we have too many. Depends on whether you're moving the wheel in or out, but we have too many spacers on here because we're not going to have a full nut. Boom, the nut's not going to. You want to have a full nut. In other words, you want the axle at the minimum be flush with the end of the nut here. As you can see, we're coming up short of that. So spin this back off of here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take the spacer off of here. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show everybody. It looks like we got everything we need here. We got a full nut, spacers are on, snug this thing down, but look, it's loose. This happens often. We guys walk in the shop all the time. Wheel centers are wore out, the splines are wore out in the center, and the nut, look here, this will be all gauded up, but it'll get tight. So what's happening is, it looks like you got everything you need, but if you look in here, the splines are sticking out just past the spacer down in there. So a quick glance, especially at the track at night, you're working on the car, it's dark. You're in there and you think you got everything you need, looks right, throw the nut on there, snugs up, boom, you're good to go. Well, here you're not. So it's one thing you really got to pay attention to is having the proper spacing, because a couple things will happen. A, you might get lucky and run the whole race. Wheel might not come loose. You're just going to wear out your center because it's going to be moving. It's going to be moving both ways, in and out and front to back. And you're going to wear these spacers out because they're going to start hammering, and it's going to wear the nut out too. So that's one of the most common things we run into here. Spacing is just off. I have my guys, every time we change wheels, they at the track, and a lot of times they'll have a headlamp on, or they'll get the cell phone out and they'll get in there and be looking. But once they make the thing hand tight, I have them always grab the wheel and try and move the wheel. If that wheel moves, and it's not right, your spacing's off and your nut's bombed out on the splines. So that's not good. I'm gonna switch this spacing around just a little bit here. Of course, if you're at the track, you're measuring with the tape measures to get your desired spacing, whether it be 18 inches or whatever it might be, to get the right spacing. Here we are, full nut, just past flush. Snug the nut up, center's tight, wheel's tight, don't want to move. That's an indication that it's together right, the nut's not bombed out on the splines, and from there you're ready to put the wheel wrench on it and send it out in the racetrack. One more thing here about the spacers. Sometimes people new to the sport don't know this, but it is okay to stack these. Like I said, the spacer kit that we sell comes with 7 straights and 3 cones. As you can tell, this is a mismatch, so you're gonna need some more cones to do both sides. But it is okay to use multiple cones if you have to. It's fine. And these cones have splines in them, so they lock in there. And so don't hesitate to stack them on there at all, because it's okay. All right, so we covered the spacers, straights, the cones, putting the wheel on, getting the proper spacing. Now we're going to talk about the actual nut and what we do from week to week. Here at Racers Used Parts Warehouse, we do a lot of rear end rebuilds. Customers bring the rear ends here, and I see this happen all the time, and it's like a pet peeve of mine, and I think it's a pet peeve of Danny's too, probably. But people put Never-Sees on the splines here, on the threads here. They use grease. They'll use WD-40, all kinds of lubricants. Well, the problem with that is then the nut doesn't want to go on. You got to turn it manually. You got to turn it every inch of the way with your hand like this. Doesn't spin like that. So I'll tell you what we do here on our own cars is every week when we're doing maintenance, we clean the nut off in the parts washer. These have already been serviced, but clean them off. We'll take a wire brush. We'll clean the spline. We'll actually clean the splines off here and the threads off here all the way around. And then I'll take a rag. I'll just polish them up like this. Get them nice and clean, and they're dry. If you had to, you could put a little WD-40 on there if they're dirty, but these are pretty clean. And then the next step is powdered graphite. This is just a generic. You can get this at any auto parts store. We don't carry it here, but it's a powdered graphite. It's a dry lubricant, as you can see there. It's just it's just a powder, like it says. So what that does is it lubricates the threads. So we'll put that on here just like this. About all it takes. Take the clean nut, put it on. Boom, it's on there. Now, why is this important? Well, sometimes time's a factor. You're trying to change a tire. You got 2 laps or 2 minutes, whatever the case may be, to get back out. Or you're making a last minute adjustment in the pit area. You want to move the wheel one way or the other. You don't want to be there monkeying around trying to get your nut threaded on. So we got the graphite on there. The next step we do, final step, is this taper here. You can see where it's shiny, where it's been drawn up on the spacers and on the. So we put just a little bit of grease on there, just a number 2 grease we got here. It's Kendall grease. We use this same grease on our torsion bars, torque ball, all kinds of multi-purpose stuff. It's a Kendall blue grease. We got it here at the shop. It's for sale upstairs. Just a fine film of grease. Now, it's important because we're at a dirt track. You got to stress to your guys, never take the nut and sit it on the ground like so. What's going to happen? It's going to be full of dirt. Or they sit it in the wheel, the wheel's full of dirt sticking to the nut. So then you got to clean it off with a rag and start all over. The purpose of this is to keep it from galding up against the spacer when you're drawing it down. Obviously there's some friction there, and if you don't put a lubrication on it, eventually it'll actually start moving the aluminum, and you have to throw them away, throw the nuts away, throw the spacer away. So we got graphite on there, we got our grease on there. Boom, goes on nice and smooth. And next step is we'll put it all back together and put the wheel wrench on here and snug her down. All right, so what we got here is, like I was talking to you earlier on our video, I got the 10-piece winner's wheel spacer kit here. 3 cones, 7 straights, all different sizes here, a variety of stuff. And then I have a pair of the winner's axle nuts. Also have them here. These actually come in standard and ultralight for different axles. It'll be in a future video. We're going to get into the rear end stuff with standard weight and ultralight axle nuts. We stock them both. And the Kendall grease, the blue grease, the super blue. Got that here also. And then like I said earlier, the graphite. I believe there's some extra fine graphite out there. You can get it on Amazon, like I said, or your local auto parts store. And there's all the stuff. And here's how spacers come. These are out of the bag. But if you buy a spacer kit, they come like this. So there's everything we talked about today.